There's a reason some truths don't make it into the mainstream. Not because they don't work, but because they work too well. You've been told that change takes time, that healing must be guided, that to rebuild your life, you need permission, sessions, steps, and validation. But what if I told you there is a mechanism inside your own brain that can rewrite your entire life, and no one taught you how to use it? It's not a myth. It's science. Your brain is not a fixed structure. It is a living, breathing, reprogrammable machine. It doesn't just record reality, it creates it. And the most powerful tool for transformation is not medication, not motivation, not even therapy. It's attention. Where your attention goes, your brain grows. When you focus, truly focus on a new thought, a new belief, a new response, even if just for a minute, you begin to carve a new path in your brain. This isn't philosophy. It's neuroplasticity, the ability to reshape your brain through choice. And here's the hack they didn't want you to know. If you deliberately face your fear, not avoid it, not numb it, not talk around it, but look it in the eye with calm awareness, your brain starts rewiring itself in real time. When you stop running, when you stand still in the discomfort, you are telling your nervous system, I am not in danger. I am in control. That message doesn't stay in your mind. It gets written into your biology. So why was this method pushed aside? Because it doesn't require years. It doesn't require someone else to fix you. It gives the power back to you. You can rewire your panic. You can dissolve your trauma. You can retrain your brain. But it's not a passive process. It's deliberate. The next time your anxiety spikes or your old wound returns, don't flinch. Don't run. Take a deep breath and focus. 2 minutes of calm attention can change the architecture of your mind. You are not broken. You're undertrained. Train your mind. Transform your life. This is the science of self-mastery. And the system can't sell it, so you've got to learn it for yourself. Let the world doubt you. But don't you ever doubt the power of your own mind. The hack is real. Now use it. Self-directed neuroplasticity is one of the most revolutionary concepts in neuroscience, yet it remains widely misunderstood and underutilized. At its core, it means you have the power to change the structure and function of your brain simply by how you use your mind. This isn't just inspirational talk. This is biology. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, and every action you repeat has the potential to physically alter the neural circuits in your brain. That means your habits, your responses to stress, your patterns of thinking, even your sense of self, none of it is fixed. It is all moldable, changeable, trainable. And the tool that makes it happen, your own conscious awareness. The brain is a dynamic system. When you focus on a specific thought or intention with intensity and repetition, neurons begin to fire in new ways. Over time, these firing patterns get reinforced and form new neural pathways. The phrase, neurons that fire together wire together, is not just a catchy saying, it's a scientific truth. When you consistently direct your attention to a new thought, such as, I am capable, even if you don't fully believe it at first, your brain starts to make it real. The neural pathways associated with self-doubt begin to weaken from lack of use, while those associated with self-belief grow stronger. But this is not automatic. It's not enough to casually wish for a better mindset or wait for motivation to strike. Self-directed neuroplasticity requires deliberate effort. It asks you to become the driver of your own mind, not just a passenger reacting to circumstances. It demands that you train your thoughts with the same discipline an athlete trains their body. And the first step in this training is attention. Not scattered, distracted attention, but focused, purposeful attention. The kind that sees a limiting thought arise, like, I'll never succeed, and gently but firmly replaces it with a chosen alternative. Not once, not twice, but over and over again until the brain begins to reflect that new internal reality. This is why mindfulness and meditation practices have such powerful effects on the brain. They teach you to observe your thoughts without judgment and choose where to place your attention. Through consistent practice, the areas of the brain responsible for self-regulation, focus, and emotional resilience actually grow thicker and more efficient. But even outside formal meditation, self-directed neuroplasticity is happening every day. Every time you resist the urge to react in anger and choose patience instead, you are reshaping your brain. Every time you stop a spiral of negative thinking and replace it with gratitude, you are rewiring your internal world. The most powerful part of this is that it gives you agency. No matter what your past looks like, no matter what trauma, conditioning, or mental habits you carry, your brain is not your destiny, it's your starting point. Through conscious effort, you can build a new internal structure that supports who you want to become. And it doesn't take a lifetime. Studies show that even a few minutes a day of focused mental practice can lead to significant changes in brain function within weeks. but the results compound. The more you train your mind, the more control you gain over your emotions, your behaviors, and ultimately your life. This is not easy work. In fact, your brain will resist it. It loves the familiar, even if the familiar is painful. It prefers efficiency over transformation. That's why real change feels uncomfortable. That's why it's easier to repeat the same thoughts and behaviors, even when they hurt you, than it is to create new ones. But when you understand that resistance is part of the process, you stop seeing it as a sign to quit and start seeing it as proof that you're doing the right thing. Every time you push through that resistance, you're breaking down the old wiring and laying the foundation for something stronger. This is also why consistency is more powerful than intensity. You don't need to overhaul your mind overnight. You just need to show up every day. Spend 5 minutes a day consciously choosing your thoughts. When you feel anxiety, pause and observe it instead of reacting to it. When a voice in your head says, "You're not good enough," respond with one that says, "I'm growing stronger every day." That response might feel fake at first. That's okay. You're not trying to fake belief. You're building it. Belief is a neural network, and like any network, it needs time to be constructed. The brain doesn't care what you think is real. It responds to repetition. If you repeat a thought often enough, your brain will accept it as truth. So if your mind is filled with self-doubt, fear, and negativity, it's not because that's who you are. It's because those thoughts have been repeated long enough to become default patterns. But defaults can be changed. You have the power to install a new operating system. You are not the victim of your brain, you are its engineer. And here's the key: self-directed neuroplasticity is not about ignoring reality or pretending everything is perfect. It's about becoming aware of how your internal reality is shaping your external experience. It's about using science to work with your biology, not against it. It's about training your mind to see possibilities where it once saw limits, to feel calm where it once felt chaos, and to choose growth where it once chose fear. This power is available to anyone. You don't need a degree. You don't need permission. All you need is the willingness to show up, to focus, and to keep choosing who you want to become until your brain catches up with your vision. And it will, because it's wired for change. And now, so are you. Deliberate cold exposure to emotions is not about numbing yourself or becoming indifferent to pain. It's about intentionally choosing to confront discomfort in order to retrain your brain's relationship with fear, anxiety, and emotional stress. For most of human history, we've been conditioned to avoid discomfort. Whether it's emotional pain, fear, sadness, or uncertainty, the instinct is to run, hide, distract, or suppress. But neuroscience is now revealing a radical truth. When we voluntarily engage with our emotional discomfort, when we step into the cold, so to speak, we trigger a powerful neurological process that builds resilience, clarity, and long-term emotional strength. Think about physical cold exposure for a moment. When someone immerses themselves in an ice bath, their initial response is panic. The body wants to escape, the heart races, the breath shortens. But if the individual stays calm, if they learn to control their breath and remain still in that discomfort, the nervous system adapts. Over time, what once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. This is not because the water got warmer. It's because the body and mind learned to regulate their response. The exact same process applies to emotional cold exposure. When we willingly face our inner pain, rather than react to it or flee from it, our brain begins to rewire the circuits that once associated discomfort with danger. The emotional brain, the limbic system, is wired for survival, not peace. When it detects any kind of emotional threat like rejection, failure, or humiliation, it sends distress signals through the body. But here's the critical insight: the brain does not distinguish between actual danger and perceived discomfort. That means your fear of speaking in public, your anxiety about being judged, your sadness over past trauma, all of it can register in your body as if your life is under threat. The heart races, the muscles tense, the mind scrambles for escape. But you are not actually in danger. You are simply uncomfortable. And if you stay with that discomfort, if you learn to feel it fully without judgment or panic, you train your brain to see it not as a threat, but as a challenge. This process builds something far deeper than confidence. It builds emotional immunity. Just as your immune system becomes stronger when exposed to controlled doses of stress, your emotional system becomes more stable when exposed to controlled doses of inner discomfort. This is the core of deliberate cold exposure to emotions. It's about sitting with your fear, not fighting it. It's about allowing sadness to rise without drowning in it. It's about breathing through anxiety instead of running from it. And in doing so, you prove to your brain over and over again that these feelings are not fatal, that you are safe, that you are capable, that you are in control. But make no mistake, this is not about glorifying pain or chasing suffering. It's about reframing your response to unavoidable emotional discomfort, because life will bring it whether you want it or not. Grief, rejection, failure, loneliness, they are part of the human experience. You can't avoid them forever, but you can train for them, you can prepare. And you do that by leaning in gently, intentionally, and consistently. Just like dipping into a cold lake a little deeper each time, you build tolerance. You expand your capacity. And with every repetition, your brain changes. The amygdala, the brain's fear center, becomes less reactive. The prefrontal cortex, the center of rational thought and decision-making, becomes more dominant. You become calmer, wiser, stronger. This kind of training doesn't require a therapist or a guide, though those can help. It requires courage. It requires presence. And most of all, it requires practice. Emotional cold exposure isn't a one-time breakthrough. It's a lifestyle of honesty with yourself. A commitment to stop escaping, to stop covering the wound with noise, distraction, or denial, and to start letting yourself feel fully and consciously whatever is there. One of the most powerful techniques within this method is to schedule time each day or week to sit quietly and invite your most avoided emotion. Maybe it's fear, maybe it's shame, maybe it's grief. Instead of pushing it down, you say, "Come, I'm ready now." And then you do nothing but feel. No judgment, no fixing, just breath, presence, and stillness. This is the emotional equivalent of an ice bath. At first, it shocks the system. But with time, it becomes liberating. Because once you stop being afraid of your emotions, they stop controlling you. This is how you build true inner freedom. Not by eliminating pain, but by changing your relationship with it. The moment you realize you can feel sadness without collapsing, or fear without retreating, or doubt without self-destruction, that moment is power. Because it proves to you that you are not your emotions. You are the observer, the witness, the consciousness behind the storm. In a world obsessed with comfort, distraction, and quick fixes, this practice is rare. But it is the path to transformation. You will not become strong by hiding from your shadow. You will not become fearless by pretending you have no fear. You become those things by entering the fire and learning to breathe. Not once, but over and over. Until the fire no longer consumes you, it forges you. The truth is, most people live their entire lives in emotional avoidance. They chase pleasures, numb their pain, and wonder why happiness feels temporary. But you are not most people. You are here to master yourself, and mastery begins where comfort ends. So the next time you feel that wave of anxiety rise, pause. Don't react. Don't escape. Let it wash over you. Feel it fully. Stay calm, breathe deep, and remind your brain, I am safe. I am here. I am not afraid to feel. This is how resilience is born. This is how the old wiring is broken. This is how a new mind, a stronger, wiser, unshakable mind is built, not in theory. In practice, every single day. You are the cold, you are the heat, you are the storm. But you are also the calm in the center. Return to it, train in it, live in it. And you will never fear your emotions again. Top-down control over bottom-up responses is a groundbreaking principle in neuroscience that explains how the higher order functions of the brain, our conscious awareness, our reasoning, and our intention can override and reshape the more primitive, automatic responses driven by emotion, instinct, and past conditioning. The brain operates on two general levels. The first is the bottom-up system, which includes structures like the amygdala and brainstem. These are fast, automatic, and largely subconscious. They control our fight or flight responses. Our stress reactions are conditioned emotional triggers. They are powerful, but not always accurate. The second is the top-down system, primarily the prefrontal cortex, which governs decision-making, self-control, long-term planning, and rational thought. This system is slower but smarter. And it is the one that separates us from merely reacting to life and empowers us to respond with intention. In simple terms, bottom-up processes are like emotional reflexes. They're fast and often useful, especially in situations of real danger. But in modern life, where we are rarely in physical danger, those same automatic responses can become sources of suffering. Anxiety that used to protect us becomes chronic. Anger that once ensured survival now damages relationships. Fear that was once life-saving becomes paralyzing. That's where top-down control becomes vital. When you consciously recognize your automatic emotional reaction and decide to pause, assess, and choose a different response, you're using your top-down system to override your bottom-up impulses. This is not suppression. Suppression means pushing emotions down, pretending they're not there. Top-down control is something entirely different. It's about regulation. It's about awareness. You feel the emotion fully, but you don't let it dictate your behavior. You create space between stimulus and response. That space is where your power lies. Viktor Frankl once said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. That space is a function of top-down control, and it is trainable. The more you practice this kind of mental control, the stronger your top-down system becomes. Just like a muscle, the prefrontal cortex strengthens with use. Mindfulness, meditation, breathwork, journaling, cognitive reframing. All these practices train your brain to respond with awareness rather than react with emotion. Over time, the gap between feeling and acting grows wider. You become less reactive, more thoughtful, more grounded. You begin to notice the early signals of stress before they become full-blown panic. You start catching your anger in its earliest sparks before it turns to fire. You learn to interrupt negative thought patterns before they spiral. This ability is not just about managing emotions. It's about mastering life, because life will always test you. People will provoke you. Circumstances will challenge you. You cannot control what happens to you, but you can control what happens within you. That is what top-down control gives you, the authority to decide your inner state no matter the outer situation. Neuroscience shows that people with a stronger prefrontal cortex are more resilient, more emotionally stable, and more successful in navigating stress. They can delay gratification. They can stay calm in chaos. They can focus under pressure. And most importantly, they can align their actions with their values instead of their moods. This alignment is the essence of personal power. You are no longer at the mercy of old programming or childhood conditioning. You are not ruled by instinct. You are guided by vision. But building this level of mental control takes effort. It requires awareness. Most people go through life operating on autopilot. Their emotions control their decisions. Their habits run their days. They're reactive instead of intentional. And because of that, they repeat the same cycles over and over. But the moment you wake up to your own inner mechanisms, the moment you observe your emotional patterns instead of blindly obeying them, you reclaim your power. For example, say someone insults you. The bottom-up response might be instant anger, defensiveness, or retreat. But the top-down response pauses. It considers. It asks, is this worth my peace? Is there truth in this feedback? How do I want to show up right now? And based on those answers, you respond not from ego or emotion, but from clarity. That doesn't mean you suppress how you feel. It means you give your feelings a voice, not a vote. One of the most effective ways to strengthen top-down control is to engage in daily reflection. When you reflect on your day, on moments you felt triggered, or where you responded well or poorly, you are literally training your brain to be more conscious. You're building mental maps that can guide future behavior. You're rewiring your automatic responses into intentional choices. Another method is controlled stress exposure. When you put yourself in difficult situations, whether through cold exposure, intense exercise, difficult conversations, or public speaking, and consciously regulate your response, you are strengthening the neural connections between the prefrontal cortex and the emotional centers of your brain. This is how emotional intelligence is built. Not in calm times, but in the storm. It's easy to be composed when life is smooth. But real power is proven under pressure. Top-down control also helps in building long-term habits. Motivation is bottom-up. It rises and falls. But discipline is top-down. It's a choice made regardless of how you feel. When you commit to something, waking up early, sticking to a routine, showing up when it's hard, you are reinforcing your prefrontal cortex's control over the more impulsive, comfort-seeking parts of your brain. And that control becomes automatic with time. Eventually, what used to be difficult becomes natural, not because it got easier, but because you got stronger. And here's the beauty of it. This kind of mental training doesn't require a perfect past, a high IQ, or some superhuman talent. It requires consistency, awareness, a willingness to take responsibility for your inner world. Every moment is an opportunity to practice. When you feel irritation rise, pause. When fear hits, observe. When the old reaction tries to take over, intervene. Choose again and again and again. Top-down control is the pathway to freedom. Freedom from emotional slavery. Freedom from reactive patterns. Freedom from the lie that your past defines your future. You are not your impulses. You are not your fear. You are not your anger. You are the one who can witness all of it and choose differently. And that choice, repeated over time, changes your brain. It creates a new default, a new normal, one where peace becomes your power, where clarity becomes your compass, and where who you want to be no longer feels like a distant dream, but a daily reality. You are not just a product of your wiring. You are the one who can rewrite the code. And the pen has always been in your hands. The concept of neuroplasticity is one of the most powerful and hopeful ideas in modern neuroscience. It reveals that the brain is not fixed. It's not a rigid machine that gets set in childhood and deteriorates with age. Instead, your brain is a dynamic, Living system that is constantly changing, adapting, learning, unlearning, and rewiring itself based on how you use it. This means you are not stuck. No matter what you've experienced, no matter what habits you've developed, no matter how reactive or negative or broken your mind may feel, you have the capacity to change. And that change starts not with medication, not with external validation, but with consistent, intentional effort. Your brain is shaped by your thoughts, behaviors, and environment. Every time you repeat a thought or behavior, you strengthen the neural pathway associated with it. That's why negative thinking over time becomes automatic. That's why anxiety can feel hardwired. That's why certain emotional reactions seem to come out of nowhere. But if those patterns were built through repetition, they can be rewired the same way. You're not doomed to live in the same loops. You're not sentenced to relive the same trauma. You're simply practicing the same thoughts and responses. Neuroplasticity tells us practice something new. When you deliberately choose different thoughts, when you catch yourself spiraling in fear and shift to gratitude, when you replace self-criticism with self-compassion, when you interrupt avoidance with action, you're laying down new tracks in your brain. At first, it's hard. The old patterns are strong. They feel natural. They are wired deep. But if you stay consistent, the new patterns begin to take over. Your brain starts to favor the new pathway because that's how neuroplasticity works. Neurons that fire together wire together. The more often you activate a new neural route, the more dominant it becomes. This process doesn't happen overnight. You have to train your brain like a muscle. And just like physical training, mental training requires discomfort. Growth is painful. Not because you're broken, but because you're stretching beyond what's familiar. Most people resist that pain. They choose the comfort of the known, even if it's toxic, over the effort of change. But the pain of staying stuck will always be greater than the discomfort of evolving. Neuroplasticity is your invitation to evolve, to take responsibility for the structure of your own mind. One of the most incredible aspects of neuroplasticity is its ability to reshape your emotional responses. If you've lived most of your life in anxiety, you may believe that calmness is not part of your nature. But that belief is based on past wiring, not on truth. If you train your brain to respond differently, if you practice breathing through stress, visualizing positive outcomes, and interrupting catastrophic thinking, you will literally build a brain that favors peace over panic. If you've lived with low self-worth, you may believe you're not enough, but that belief was installed, not inherent. You can uninstall it. And you do it by repeatedly affirming your value, taking bold actions, and proving to yourself that you are capable. Each time you choose the new response, you feed the new wiring. This principle applies not only to emotions, but to identity. Who you think you are is not fixed. Identity is a set of beliefs you've rehearsed. And beliefs live in the brain as neural circuits. That means you can build a new identity by acting in alignment with who you want to become. You don't need to believe in yourself to start. You need to start, and belief will follow. Neuroplasticity doesn't wait for permission. It responds to repetition. But here's the catch: your brain doesn't care what you rehearse. It will wire in negativity just as easily as it wires in positivity. It will reinforce fear as easily as it reinforces courage. It will strengthen any pattern you give attention to. That's why awareness is everything. If you don't become conscious of your default programming, you'll unconsciously repeat it. Neuroplasticity is always working. The question is, are you using it intentionally? Intentional neuroplasticity begins with observing your patterns. Notice your automatic thoughts. Catch your self-talk. Pay attention to how you react under pressure. Don't judge it, just notice it. Once you're aware, you have power. You can begin to question those patterns. Is this thought true? Is this belief serving me? Is this response aligned with the person I want to be? Then you practice a new pattern again and again, no matter how awkward or unnatural it feels at first. Your brain loves what's familiar, even if it's harmful. But the more you repeat something, the more familiar it becomes. This is why practice is everything. Every time you choose a better thought, a better behavior, a better response, you make the new familiar. And the familiar becomes your new identity. This is how transformation happens, not by waiting for motivation, not by hoping for change, but by rewiring your brain through repetition and action. There's also a deep emotional component to neuroplasticity. The brain changes most effectively when emotion is involved. That means your most painful moments are also your most powerful opportunities to rewire. When you're in the middle of heartbreak, fear, or despair, your brain is in a highly plastic state. If in that moment you choose a new way of thinking, if you find courage instead of collapse, strength instead of surrender, you burn a new path into your mind. It's in the fire that the sword is forged. Don't waste your pain. Use it to evolve. And remember, you are not alone in this. Every person you admire has walked this path. Not one of them was born with a perfectly wired brain. They became who they are through conscious effort, through struggle, through rewiring their inner world. They fell. They repeated old patterns. But they got back up. They chose again. You can too. Neuroplasticity is your proof that change is possible, not just theoretically, not just for others, for you, right now. But only if you stop waiting for the change to happen to you and start becoming the one who creates it. You are not your thoughts. You are the thinker. You are not your past. You are the one who chooses what comes next. Every day, your brain is changing. The question is, who are you training it to become? That answer is written in your actions, and your actions are building the brain you live with. Make it a mind you're proud to own. The breath is one of the most underestimated yet powerful tools for regulating your mind, emotions, and nervous system. It is always with you, always accessible, and it operates at the intersection of the conscious and subconscious. Most bodily functions, like digestion or heart rate, are largely automatic. You don't think about them, and you can't easily control them. But breathing is different. You breathe automatically, yet you can also take conscious control of it at any moment. And when you do, you gain direct access to the state of your body and your mind. You can shift from stress to calm, from chaos to clarity, from reaction to intention. And this is not spiritual theory, it's neuroscience. When you're anxious, stressed, or overwhelmed, your breathing changes. It becomes shallow, rapid, often chest-based. This triggers a cascade in your nervous system, activating your sympathetic, fight or flight response. Your heart rate increases, your muscles tense, your focus narrows, and your body prepares for danger, even if there is no real threat. But the reverse is also true. When you intentionally slow your breath, deepen it, and shift it into your belly, you signal safety to your nervous system. You activate the parasympathetic rest and digest state. Your heart rate slows, your muscles relax, your thoughts become clearer, and your emotional reactivity decreases. This is why breathwork is so effective. It gives you control over your state in real time. One specific breathing technique, often referred to as physiological sighing, involves 2 quick inhales through the nose followed by a long exhale through the mouth. This pattern has been shown to rapidly calm the nervous system, lower carbon dioxide levels, and reset emotional balance. It's not just a relaxation hack, it's a reset button. In moments of panic or stress, you can use this simple breath pattern to regain control, to move from reaction to regulation, from being consumed by emotion to calmly observing it. Your breath is also deeply connected to your emotional memory. Certain breathing patterns become unconsciously tied to trauma, to fear, to failure. But when you retrain your breathing, you start to break those links. You create new associations. A slow, steady breath becomes linked with power, with presence, with control. Over time, your nervous system begins to favor that new state. It becomes easier to stay grounded in situations that used to trigger you. And that's not willpower, it's biology being reshaped through breath. Beyond emotional regulation, breathing can also sharpen your focus. In a world full of distractions and mental noise, concentration is a superpower. Controlled breathing increases oxygen to the brain, balances your internal chemistry, and tunes your attention. Athletes use it before performance. Speakers use it before going on stage. Leaders use it before making big decisions. Because the quality of your breath influences the quality of your mind. When your breathing is erratic, your thinking is scattered. But when your breathing is steady, your thoughts become aligned. One of the most empowering things about using breathwork for emotional and mental control is that it puts the power back in your hands. Too many people walk through life feeling like victims of their moods, their past, or their circumstances. But your breath gives you a way out. You don't need a perfect environment to feel calm. You don't need every problem solved to feel centered. You just need to stop, notice your breath, and consciously change it. That one small act is a declaration. I am not helpless. I am not trapped. I have control. And every time you do it, you reinforce a new identity, not as a reactor, but as a responder. Breathe is also the bridge between the body and mind. When you control your breath, you bring awareness into the present moment. You come out of your head and into your body. And from that place of embodiment, you can begin to dissolve the mental chatter, the fear loops, the overthinking. You become rooted, awake, alive. So much of mental suffering comes from being caught in the past or anxious about the future. But your breath is always now. It anchors you to what's real. The consistency of breathwork matters more than intensity. You don't need to spend hours meditating. Even 5 minutes a day of conscious breathing can begin to rewire your stress response, your focus, and your emotional regulation. It's not about doing it perfectly. It's about doing it regularly. The more often you choose to breathe with intention, the more familiar that state becomes. Your nervous system learns, it adapts, it begins to default to calm over chaos. You become the eye of the storm, not the storm itself. Breath is also a powerful amplifier of courage. In fearful moments, before a difficult conversation, a new challenge, a leap into the unknown, your body will resist, it will tense. Your breath will become shallow. But if you override that reflex with a deep, steady breath, you send a new signal. This is safe. I can handle this. And that shift unlocks access to parts of your brain that were previously hijacked by fear. You regain your logic, your presence, your clarity. You become capable again. Over time, the breath becomes a trusted ally, a tool you can call on anytime, anywhere. When anxiety hits, breathe. When anger rises, breathe. When doubt creeps in, breathe. It's always there. And that reliability creates resilience. You begin to trust yourself, not because life is predictable, but because you've trained your inner world to be steady, regardless of outer storms. Science has only begun to scratch the surface of what breath can do. But ancient traditions knew this long ago. They used breath not only to calm the body, but to awaken the mind, to expand consciousness, to elevate spirit. You don't need to believe in any philosophy to feel the truth of this. You just need to breathe intentionally, consistently, powerfully. Breathing isn't just surviving, it's a skill, a practice, a choice. And the more skillful you become, the more influence you have over your internal world. The world won't stop throwing challenges at you. But your ability to meet them with strength, clarity, and grace comes down to how well you can command your state. And breath is your command center. You may not be able to change every situation, but you can always change your breath. And that one change can ripple into everything else. Your focus, your emotions, your actions, your future. You're not powerless. You're just one deep breath away from remembering your strength. Your brain doesn't speak English. It doesn't speak Hindi, Spanish, or any language you've learned to speak. Your brain speaks in patterns. It speaks in signals, in electrical pulses, in frequencies of repetition. What you do consistently, what you think repeatedly, what you feel regularly, that is the language your brain understands. This is why habits shape identity, why thoughts become reality, and why repeated emotions carve permanent grooves in the nervous system. You cannot talk your way into a new life if your patterns contradict your words. You cannot affirm your way into success if your daily actions reflect fear, procrastination, or self-sabotage. Because in the end, your brain doesn't follow what you say, it follows what you do and repeat. The mind is like a record, and every thought, every action, every feeling is like a groove carved deeper into the surface. Play a groove enough times, and it becomes the default track. You think it's who you are? I'm just an anxious person. I'm always unmotivated. I can't focus. But those are not facts. They're rehearsed patterns, neural grooves that got played so many times, they became automatic. You didn't choose them consciously, but you reinforced them through repetition. The good news is you can change the groove. You can create a new track. Not instantly, not by wishing, but by choosing a different signal again and again until the brain gets the message. This is where intention meets biology. When you become aware of the signals you're sending your brain, you reclaim power. Every choice you make is input. Every habit is a message. Every emotion is a language. The question is, what are you communicating to your nervous system day after day? When you delay action out of fear, you tell your brain that avoidance equals safety. When you indulge self-doubt, you tell your brain that playing small is the strategy for survival. When you react with anger, you tell your brain that the world is a threat. And your brain adapts. It rewires itself to make that experience easier next time. It becomes faster, more automatic, more unconscious. But the reverse is also true. When you face fear, act despite doubt, regulate your anger, choose discipline, or lean into discomfort, you're sending a different signal. You're saying, this is who I am now. And with enough consistency, your brain accepts that identity. It starts predicting that behavior. It starts building neural networks that support it. Your brain doesn't care if your patterns are empowering or destructive. It doesn't judge. It simply obeys the signals. This is why transformation is not just about learning. It's about unlearning, breaking the cycle, interrupting the loop, catching yourself when you're about to repeat the old reaction and choosing a new one. At first, the new pattern feels awkward, weak, fragile. That's because the neural connections are still young. But each time you reinforce them, they strengthen. Eventually, they become the new automatic. And that's when your brain starts working for you instead of against you. This is also why motivation is unreliable. Motivation is a fleeting emotion, but signals are stable. The real transformation happens when you act in alignment with your future self, even when you don't feel like it. when you do the reps, when you hold the discipline, when you make the choice not because it feels good in the moment, but because it speaks the right language to your brain. That's when the rewiring happens. That's when identity shifts. That's when the grooves change. So ask yourself, what patterns are you practicing every day? What thoughts do you rehearse the most? What feelings do you dwell in? What behaviors have become so automatic that you no longer question them? Those are the patterns shaping your brain. And unless you bring awareness and intention to them, they will continue to define your reality. You don't get what you want. You get what you consistently practice, consciously or not. It's easy to underestimate the power of small repetitions. One positive action, one intentional thought, one regulated emotion, it might not seem like much. But over time, those repetitions compound. They become a new language, a new identity, a new mind. You don't have to change your entire life in a day. You just have to start sending different signals. Interrupt the old story. Speak a new command. Your brain is listening. It always has been. Consistency is king in this process. Not perfection, consistency. You will slip. You will revert. You will fall back into the old groove. That's normal. That's biology. But the more often you choose the new pattern, the easier it becomes. The brain is not stubborn. It's adaptable. But it takes persistence. It takes repetition. And it takes the courage to keep showing up when change feels slow, when the old identity tries to pull you back, when the external results haven't arrived yet. Because that's when it matters most. That's when the new groove gets carved. You are programming your brain with every choice you make, every thought you validate, every habit you repeat. The brain's language is frequency. The more often you speak the right signal, the more fluent you become in the life you're trying to build. And over time, those new circuits take over. You start to feel different. Think different. Act different. Not because you're pretending, but because you've become. Your future self is not waiting for the perfect conditions. It's waiting for different patterns. Your brain is not an enemy. It's a follower. It follows the signals. And you are the one who decides what those signals are. Let your patterns reflect your power, not your past. Let your repetitions reflect your vision, not your fear. This is how you take control, not just of your mind, but of your life. Speak the right language and your brain will translate it into transformation. Every time, every day. Every signal,